Hey everyone, welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church. And today we're going to finish up 3rd John, and this is going to be 3rd John 1, 5 through 15, and this is caring for the Lord's workers. And what I did is I went ahead and include the ending in with this one because it's like one or two verses, and I didn't want to do a 2-minute video on that, so we're going to just combine these these 2 days into one. So this is John writing about in 3rd John about writing for the Lord's workers. He says, "Dear friends, you are being faithful to God when you care for the traveling teachers who pass through, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church here of your loving friendship. Please continue providing for such teachers in a manner that pleases God. For they are traveling for the Lord, and they accept nothing from people who are not believers. So we ourselves should support them so that we can be their partners, as they teach the truth. I wrote to the church about this, but Diotrephes, who loves to be the leader, refuses to have anything to do with us. When I come, I will report some of the things he is doing and the evil accusations he is making against us. Not only does he refuse to welcome the traveling teachers, he also tells others not to help them, and when they do help them, he puts them out of the church. Dear friends, don't let this bad example influence you. Follow only what is good. Remember that those who do good prove that they are God's children, and those who do evil prove that they do not know God. Everyone speaks highly of Demetrius, as does the truth itself. We ourselves can say the same for him, and you know we speak the truth. I have much more to say to you, but I don't want to write it with pen and ink, for I hope to see you soon, and then we will talk face to face. Peace be with you. Your friends here send you their greetings. Please give my personal greetings to each of our friends there." And so this is an interesting thing here. So we see this kind of come to a head with what's going on with Diotrephes. I believe that's how you say his name there. So John, he starts us off by encouraging Gaius to continue supporting the traveling teachers whom John sent out, right? In these verses, right, John supports the traveling teachers and he condemns Diotrephes and presents Demetrius as the model of a faithful Christian who lives according to the truth. And so this is an interesting exchange that we see here. Gaius is urged to emulate Demetrius. And so he says, "I wrote to the church about this." He could be referring to First John, or maybe a letter that was written later that was lost that we just don't have. But we also see it this. But Diotrephes was full of pride and self-importance, right? He wanted to be in charge. He wanted to be the leader. He wanted to be the one. He was motivated by selfish ambition. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen many of these throughout the church. I've seen people who they want to be in charge, they want to be in a certain position, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to do that. I've, and later on we're going to see this where Diotrephes, is talking bad about these people because he wants to be in charge. I've been there. I've seen that. I've had that happen to me. And so he rejects the teachers that were sent by John, and he excommunicated any of the members of the church who did accept him. And I've seen this, and I've experienced this as well. I've seen where people who get into power in a church and they want to keep that power no matter what, or the position that they're in no matter what, they're willing to do ungodly things and unchristlike things in order to get into those positions and stay in those positions. And they're willing to say things about people that they'll even go as far as, and we've seen this, and I've experienced this as well, telling other Christians not to have anything to do with those people because they chose not to listen to them and left their church or wouldn't have anything to do with them or respect their leadership because of the way they behaved. And unfortunately, this is the human side of human nature of things, and this is how we see people. He wanted to rule the local church. He wanted to be over it, and he didn't want to have to answer to outside authority. And again, we see that happen a lot, unfortunately, inside the church. And part of it's because of the way we set up the church. We've set up people in positions of power, and when they shouldn't be positions of power. They're not in these positions of authority when really they're positions of servanthood. They're shepherds. They're to be shepherds. They're to be servants. They're to be there to serve people, not lord over or be over people. And unfortunately, when we do that, when we set up stuff like that, these are the type of things that happen. And so we see here that he was condemned. Diotrephes was condemned for his failure to live by the Christian rule of love. right? If you love people, and if you love people like Christ, you don't go around talking bad about them. You don't go around trying to make them look bad. You don't go around telling other people not to have anything to do with them just because they disagree with you, or they're getting in your way of, or you think they're a threat to you in your position of the position or power that you're trying to get to. And so this is what was happening. And unfortunately, the thing I like here, not unfortunately, this is happening. And so unfortunately, this happens in the church. It happened to John, who was an apostle of Jesus. Why do we think it's not going to happen to us? But the thing that we see here, and this is where John stands up, we have to learn to stand up to this. And this is, I think, the biggest downside in some of the false teachings in the church that we see today is we have so many people who, well, they're an elder, or they're the preacher, they're the pastor, they're the this, and, we can't see them, we can't challenge them, we can't, and it's like, yes, you can, right? That's not the way that's supposed to be. So if they're doing something wrong, if their behavior is immoral, then it needs to be corrected. I'm part of a group of small pastors, small church pastors, sorry. And that was one of the things, was they had a pastor who was lying, and they were like, well, we don't know how to hold him accountable. And it's like, why is this such a hard thing? It's like, no one wanted to hold him accountable. It's like, yes, you hold them accountable. If they're lying, they're willfully doing something that is ungodly. We have to speak up. We have to learn to speak up as Christians, as pastors, as people, and say, hey, this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. You need to step down, or you need to correct your behavior. And unfortunately, in the church, we just allow this stuff to go unchecked. And that's happening in the small church. That's happening in the large churches. That's why we're seeing all these failures of a lot of these mega pastors, right, or larger church pastors, because time after time after time, no one is willing to confront them, and no one's willing to stand up to them and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. And so this is what John is saying, that we need to do this. Those people who do this stuff, they are evil. They are doing evil, and they don't know God, is what John is saying here. And so that's what we're looking at. And so what it's saying, this applies to those who refuse to accept the teaching about Jesus Christ and refuse to live in fellowship with others who do. If you go around telling other people not to have anything to do with other Christians because they disagree with you on some small theological issues, then and John is saying that's evil, and that you don't know God. And that's not what God is calling us to do. And so we've got to be very careful with that kind of stuff. And we got to be very careful with how we behave and how we interpret things, and how if someone disagrees with us, then that's okay. We don't go around telling other people not to do anything with them, not to have them, or refuse to have anything to do with them. And so those are the type of things that we have to be very, very careful with in looking at this, and we're to be supportive of each other. We see all throughout, we see some of the apostles and some of the early leaders of the church, right? They didn't agree, right? But so what did they do? Did they, start different churches and go off? No, they went in different directions. They went and ministered Jesus over here, and they went and ministered Jesus over here, and that's what you're supposed to do. But they still loved each other, and they Paul didn't go around talking bad about the people who he had a disagreement with, right? And so that's what John is trying to get us to mirror here, and he's saying, look, you be careful with people like this. You speak up, you challenge people like this. And because these people they are refusing to live like Jesus Christ told us to do, and we need to be very careful in that, and we don't do that. And so I want to emphasize this, because I think this it definitely is a problem we see in the church a lot, and between denominations, between different same denominations, right, same people inside churches, because people it's human nature, right? We want to vie for power, we want to be in control, we want and then we get in a position of power, and it's like, even though we don't, and part of that's because, like I said, we don't set up these positions of authority in the right way. And if we did that, then it wouldn't be an issue. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and put that out there and use. I mean, we don't read a lot from 3rd John. We don't see a lot of lessons taught from 3rd John, probably for reasons, right? And so maybe we need to spend a little bit more time in here as a church and look at these. And so we go through that. And so John then closes this letter out with a farewell and greeting like we see the others. He says, peace be with you, right? Is a traditional greeting among Jews. It had taken a more of a significance of Christians. Jesus used it after his resurrections, and then he's going to give his personal greeting, give my personal greetings. Gaius was to greet the friends and those and greet them and give them his love as well. And so we just see this closing of this with Third John, and this is a good, again, it's another short. Second John and Third John are very short, right? And they're just brief to the point of what's going on, and he encourages us here too, and I didn't hit this as much, to take care of those people who are teaching and preaching, these traveling teachers. Like he said, look, they're only accepting money from fellow believers. And so we need to make sure we're taking care of this. And so this, one of the things we see is a repeated pattern. There's take care of the people who are ministering to you, who are pastoring to you. Take care of your preachers, especially those. We have some. We have a lot now who are bivocational, and a lot of them don't need as much support and stuff like that. But those who do, I mean, do everything you can to support them. Every little bit helps, and so I just encourage you to do that as well. Take care of those people who are showing you what it's like to be a real pastor, to be a servant, and to serve people, and who don't put themselves up on a pedestal and try to be the one in charge all the time and do all that stuff. If you have someone like that, man, you need to be very grateful, because it seems sometimes that's few and far between, but that's what Christ-like leadership looks like. Those who are willing to put themselves last, to not seek out authority, to not seek out being in charge, but to be the ones at the end of the line, to be the ones who are serving, who are going to be the ones getting down the mud, getting dirty, and doing that. The ones taking care of you, the shepherds, right? The ones who are going to smell a little bit because they're working hard to make sure that the flock is taken care of. Those are the ones that you're not the ones who want to try to get some power and lord it over them and do that thing. So look for those and be very thankful for those. So as always, I hope you learn from these. I hope that these are helpful. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. The way you can continue to follow along with us. And as always, I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.